experience in life. Yes. So intoxicated, man. You don't know why you do what you do. Yes.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Car Guy podcast. I'm your host, Pete, the Car Guy. Thank y'all for joining me on another beautiful Saturday morning. I cannot wait to get started. We are well into the month of July, so let's go ahead and kick this off. Without further ado, you know how we do. We're going to go ahead and drop this What's Going On segment. Talk to me so you can see what's going on, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on. Right? Hey everybody, thank y'all for joining me on the last minute live showing of the Cars and Coffee in Huntsville, Alabama last weekend. That was a very sweet treat. I was going to do a separate video just to wish everybody a great holiday. And then I found out my cousins who I was visiting down in Huntsville informed me that there was a Cars and Coffee that was going to drop off on the 4th of July around 7:30 in Huntsville. So I was so thankful that we got to do that. So that was kind of a last minute rare treat. I got a chance to look at the live video. I know you guys could hear some of it. Some of it was a little, unfortunately, some of the volume controls were a little messed up on my cell phone that I was using. So I had to replace that while I was down there anyway. It was having some issues. But anyway, I hope you got to see it. It was a great time. I got to do a few really good interviews with different individuals. So it was a great experience and great fun to be had. So I hope you guys can check that out. It is on the YouTube channel, just so you'll know. So definitely check that out. We also did a night drive the night before we left. I think it was Sunday night around 7:30, 8 o'clock, where I got a chance to cruise in a 1969 Ford Mustang convertible. That was really awesome. I greatly appreciate that. Thank you to cousin Kim Smith and Brian Smith, especially for not only recording, but allowing me to do that. So greatly appreciate you guys very much for that. So definitely check those out and continue to leave comments and everything just so you'll know. All right. And speaking of leaving comments, continue to check out the website, www.lifeofacarguy.com. Continue to check out the blogs and everything there too. All right. So we're going to go ahead and kick this off with industry in the streets next. So online publication and investor advice segment Motley Fool actually reported earlier today that Carvana is actually expanding their business into the new car market. So recently, they acquired 7 different brick and mortar dealerships from the company Stellantis. Stellantis is a conglomerate that basically merged together back in 2021 between Fiat stores and PSA Group. And what they did was they basically bought 7 of these brick and mortar locations to integrate it into their current business model. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard of Carvana. They are definitely no longer the new kid on the block. They are now the nation's leader in terms of the highest valued auto company in the country, with an asset valuation of over $70 billion, which is pretty substantial. So they've really done a great job in retooling. Back in 2022 and 2023, they went through a major restructure and restructured a lot of their debt. A lot of the car vending stations that we've seen kind of across the country, they sold a lot of those and had them leased out to them. And they basically reorganized it by having various groups of investors buy into those buildings, and they're leasing them so to reduce their overall debt to equity structure. So they have definitely come back even stronger and have become an industry leader in the used car market. But they're actually breaking out into the new car segment. Now, what they're looking to do, according to the article, they are looking to do their own brand of brick and mortar new car sales. And a lot of what they're taking away is a lot of the high expense overhead and just kind of the overall present day style of buying a car in various dealerships that we are kind of accustomed to. So, for those that have seen maybe the Capital One cafes, it's a lot like that, where you have minimal staff. You're able to kind of sit and have like a comfortable setting where you're doing everything pretty much online. And the great thing about this is that it's going to give people a lot more freedom to kind of shop and do what they want with respect to the new car segment, but still keep the main revenue streams for new cars active, and that includes the finance and insurance or F&I departments, as well as the parts and service. Those will still be intact, but you will not necessarily have the various sales consultants, sales managers, and just kind of that kind of feel to the dealership experience. So looking at this, I got to tell you, my recommendation is well, my professional and personal opinion and recommendation is this is clearly the industry leader. They are number one in the country now, which is phenomenal. Now, years ago, I know CarMax and AutoNation were kind of in the top, and then CarMax kind of took over as the largest when we talk about the overall valuation of a company. So when we talk about valuation, we're talking about the market capitalization. So with Carvana, because they are over 70 billion in terms of market capitalization valuation, that's what makes them the number one used car and vehicle retailer in the country. Now, looking at this, I really think, and I'm not an advisor yet, but I would strongly give a good look and strong review of Carvana if you are an investor and look to invest in various stocks. That's one of the things that I've kind of done over the years as being a car guy and being an avid lover of cars. I've also looked at it on the financial side as well too. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and buy and telling you it's going to be great. I am telling you, it is one to strongly give a very good look at and consider. So, just to let you guys know. But at any rate, definitely big news. And they actually, one thing I wanted to mention, they actually had one of their stores turn a very strong result this past May. So, one of their locations in Arizona specifically sold over 700 used cars this past May. So, that's an astounding turnaround considering the previous ownership only had about 30 to 50 cars that were sold at that location each month. So they're definitely doing a big thing and definitely one to keep your eyes out for. All right. All right, guys. So, topic of discussion, because we're talking about auto dealerships, I figure I'd go ahead and kind of break down the auto dealership experience from my viewpoint and just the industry viewpoint from past, present, and future. So, that's going to be the topic of discussion today. So when I was younger, the 1983 Toyota Tercel, uh, that's the very first vehicle that I can recall that I saw my parents purchase. And how I saw them purchase it was when they showed up at my daycare in Roanoke, Virginia, one afternoon where I was staying there, and I happened to see them come through the parent car line or whatever. And I didn't recognize the car, but I recognized my parents. And I remember when we went by the dealership in Roanoke, Virginia. It was located on Franklin Road, and the dealership name was Haley Toyota. And I remember they were going there to kind of finish facilitating the purchase and everything. And I remember kind of seeing that. And now, being a younger kid, I did not have a full experience of what that was like. I just kind of saw that I had to do a lot of back and forth and signing a lot of documents and whatnot. And so that's my first recollection of the dealership experience. Fast forward back to 1995, where I actually got to see my mom participate in purchasing her 1995 Forest Green Subaru Legacy wagon. This was a vehicle that was a 5 speed manual. My mom was really into 5 speeds back then. And one of the things that I really loved about it was it had a lot of torque for what it was. It was a pretty interesting little vehicle. Wasn't the fastest thing in the world, but I liked going through the gear progressions and everything. So it was pretty neat. And I remember same kind of situation. She had to go back and kind of sit, and deal with the what we call the F&I, finance insurance manager, go through all the documents and the paperwork, things like that. And then I can kind of speak to my very first dealership purchase that took place when I graduated from college back in 2001. And I remember it was around the middle of October, and I had been going back and forth to Rick Woodson Honda and off of Peters Creek Road, of all names, in Roanoke, Virginia. And I remember dealing with two different salespeople, and I just remember that experience and having my father kind of facilitate that with me because I didn't really have established credit coming out of school, but I had a good job and decent income, and those were the main factors that helped me to secure it, along with my dad kind of piggybacking with things as well too. And I remember going in and signing the paperwork, and I got to see the vehicle in the deal lane that they used to call it, where the vehicle was prepped and ready, full tank of gas, and kind of sitting off to the side outside the building. And I just remember that experience vividly because that was my first major purchase. And one of the things, just so you guys know, when you purchase a car, that's considered the second largest purchase by value that a person makes in their lifetime. Obviously, the largest is considered to be a home or a house or a condo, apartment, whatever. But that was a really interesting experience. I just remember going through and signing document after document after document, just having a pen in my hand. And back then, I used to do my signature and my full name and just kind of do it all out. Now I just do a quick signature now, but I just remember how long that took, just to go through the paperwork process. And that's one of the things that you we've experienced in the dealership with respect of finding a vehicle, negotiating, coming back from the test drive, then doing paperwork and what have you. Now keep in mind, you don't necessarily always factor in you going and coming back, and just the time it takes for that and just the process. And then of course the biggest caveat with that is just feeling like, did I really get a good deal, or am I paying more than what I should? So those were a lot of the thoughts and feelings, from the past experience of the dealership. And believe it or not, negotiating wasn't always something that was warranted or even available with respect to the information that could be had on vehicles. So fast forward to the present day and just my experience as being a sales consultant and a finance manager. One of the things I've seen that has evolved from the dealership experience is the information that is now available to regular consumers. And it started off with the invention of the internet, right? So when the internet came out, you had a lot of different factions and things that were created to kind of give consumers a leg up on what is available, what the costs are, what you should and should not pay for various things. And seeing that was kind of a really big game changer because it was like the veil was lifted. It wasn't a big secret anymore, so like potential consumers would kind of see and know what the value of certain vehicles would be, especially new cars. And with the invention of the online access, you would get access to invoice pricing, or you would know what the bottom line values of certain new cars would be. So going back to the position of what Carvana is trying to do, a lot of the brick and mortar dealerships now, one of the biggest caveats with them in terms of not being very lucrative or having strong revenue streams is because of the overhead and the lack of building in profit margins within the vehicles now. So the strongest profit margins that are now available for dealerships are going to be made through their parts and service departments as well as their finance insurance or F&I department. F&I, where they basically set you up with financing and they sell you products like extended warranties, vehicle protection plans. They had some tire and wheel, glass protection, key restoration or key replacement, and environmental protection packages where they basically coat the inside and outside and even the undercarriage of your vehicle. Various products such as that, and of course gap insurance, which basically covers you in the event of a total loss situation. So those are the pure profit areas that dealerships kind of make up the difference on a lot of their overhead and expenses. And that's one of the things where Carvana is trying to break into to avoid. So, like the Capital One Suites, Carvana is developing this situation where you've just got like a lounge area, kind of like when you go into an airport, where you're basically doing whatever you want to do there, and you just have minimal staff where they provide you with assistance should you need it. So when we're looking at the present day and where things are now, when we talk about online pricing, you also have the consumer reports that is available now, that kind of gives you a independent review of the safety and the quality of vehicles now to help individuals like us find the right vehicle and make sure we're looking at the right option. And they also give fair warning on vehicles that may have had many issues or different things that make them a not so good option to purchase. And then, of course, you've got online segments like Edmunds.com that kind of pulls all that information for you in one at one source. And it kind of gives you the pricing option, kind of gives you the survey results on the qualities of vehicle and history of the vehicle in terms of what's going on with it from new car productions and whatnot. And then, of course, on the used car side or the pre-owned car side, you have reports for vehicle history that include Carfax and what we call auto check by Experian. So these are supposed to also be independent database, repositories that just have all this information about a vehicle's history that has been reported. Now, one of the things I found out is that just because the report is there and it does show you some things doesn't mean that everything gets reported. And that's really dependent on where an individual, the previous owner, basically goes to have work done on the vehicle, or if there are certain things that are reported for insurance purposes or whatnot. So, the present day, that's kind of the style and everything now. We still, to a certain degree, have the same functionality of the sales consultant, the sales manager, as well as the finance and insurance manager, or someone that basically does paperwork for you, things like that. Now, when we talk about future state, and this is where Carvana comes in, is just kind of creating this segment where you've got pretty much all the access in front of you before you even set foot anywhere. In a lot of cases, like Carvana and CarMax and other dealers that use portals like cars.com and other avenues of bringing the vehicle to you to where you can do everything from your home, you're kind of seeing that kind of style now because people want to save time, right? And the last thing you want to do is waste time or spend time and then absorbing an amount just being on the standby or waiting and watching and not really getting through the process in a very pure, efficient manner. So you're seeing the evolution of this to come to a situation where we may not see as many sales consultants or that kind of old school style of doing things. You definitely are not going to see the back and forth, going back and forth to determine what's going to be the good price and all of that. And now, the way it's set, it kind of can eliminate the need to negotiate or the need to get a to ask and to bargain for a lower price option because now all the details and information is out there and you know where you are. And if you decide to go that way, great. If you don't, then you go to other options. One other thing that I think that has changed, that it really has evolved, is the steps to the sale and the car buying process. When we talk about looking for a car, back in the day, we would start with a newspaper, or we would start talking to people who we know that had great experiences with certain vehicles. And then you'd have to put in the footwork, right? You'd have to go to all the various dealerships and drive this vehicle and drive that vehicle and drive this one and hope that the one that you chose would still be available when and if you make a decision. Well, present day now, because of the invention of the internet and having all this information available, you've seen a huge reduction of the footwork by and large. So I believe Edmunds reported back in 2025 the average amount of visits now when people are looking to test drive and purchase a car are right around two. And they typically, before they come in, majority of them know exactly what they're looking for. They're just trying to make sure that the one that they're seeing is going to be the one they purchase. So typically now, if you're not making the connection and if you're not building that rapport with your client in a way that makes them want to work with you and desire to work with you, you're pretty much looking at just something that's very transactional. Either happen with you or happen with somebody else. Now we're looking at an even less foot track situation where people are doing everything before they even make the decision to go in and get the car. And nowadays, you're seeing a very high increase in a one visit transaction process where a client already has their financing in place, already has all the paperwork done, already has everything. They're just going to either pick up the vehicle or the vehicle is being brought to their home. Same process with trade-ins or selling your vehicle. Carvana and I think CarMax and a lot of other dealerships are continuing to develop, the less hands-on approach where your vehicle is evaluated online and all they do is a quick verification prior to obtaining your vehicle. And by doing all this, dealerships continue to build up their inventory, and now they have more choices and opportunities to retail or resell those vehicles to the general public, as long as they're in still good condition and still viable options, right? So the whole process, I think, in my professional opinion, is going to continue to follow this line of innovation, more efficient delivery, and more of a reputable approach that has various options available. So gone are the days where you just go to this one option and have this one thing, or you got to go over here. Everybody's trying to compile everything into one major visit so that you're looking to minimize your chances of going elsewhere and minimize your chances of needing to shop around and do more. So as we continue to see this, we're probably going to see more of a decline of the dealership view and approach and more of a one-to-one where there may be less and less human contact. So we'll see. It's definitely something to keep our eyes on. And I think, in my personal opinion, I think it's warranted because we're in a state of present day life where we're trying to maximize our time as much as possible and minimize the space wasters. So, what I mean by that is just the wasting of time and energy and effort. People are now less likely to want to spend time on things that they feel they shouldn't have, that should be more streamlined and should deliver a more seamless process. And that's in everything, not just the automotive industry. You can think about banking, you can think about shopping, retail shopping, and clothing stores or whatever. Even home purchases, very similar. That's why they have all these new innovations like Matterports and the digital photography, so that you don't have to physically go and see a property necessarily to really know what it's about and everything. But hey, c'est la vie, right? That's the modern age. We continue to move on wings of progress. But anyway, that's pretty much it for the topic of discussion today, guys. Moving on to drop a dime. So this one came. It's always interesting because the drop a dimes have lately been really interesting because I come across various things that either my relatives or someone has experienced, and it makes for a great topic. And so the latest one is the proximity key. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, I'm talking about your smart key or the key that's used to where it makes for like a touchless or contactless setup. So I've got an example of one right here. This is for an Audi A5, my vehicle actually. And we call this a smart key or a proximity key. And what this basically means is that as long as you have the key on you some kind of way, whether you have it in your pocket or if you're a young lady that carries your keys in your purse or if you put in your coat, whatever. As long as the key is on you, you are able to fully operate your vehicle without taking it out. So a lot of the newer vehicles nowadays have this as a standard option now. Now, with the proximity key, and what makes this very, very interesting is that if you happen to misplace your key or if you leave it in the car, your vehicle won't lock automatically. So this is one of the safety things about this. So I got a lot of detail I'm gonna cover on this and just kind of give you guys a little tutorial. When I was down in Huntsville and visiting my cousin Kim had misplaced her set of keys and she was using a set that was her spare key. And she was trying to figure out why it wasn't working. So thankfully, she was able to talk to me about it and I was able to help her. And even though I had changed the battery in the fob and everything, it still wasn't working. What I found out was her second key had not been programmed. So, unlike the old school days where you could get keys cut, and if you lose one, you just grab the other one and go, these keys are not only specifically made for the vehicle, they're actually programmed specifically for that car. And if you actually get another key cut, or if you lose a key and you get a replacement key without having the other key, that programming will erase the previous key that you either have misplaced or didn't bring with you. So these are really, really not only very, very expensive keys, they're very, very modernized to where you need to be have a little bit more of extra caution put in terms of the use and just keeping up with these. Now, a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about with these. Number one, these keys, most of them will have like a little key embedded on the inside of it. Now, as I tried to detach this thing, and I haven't detached it in a while, so here is where it kind of detaches. I guess make sure you guys can see this. So here's the actual blade key. Now, for the driver's side, mostly, this is where you would insert. Now, if your key area is covered with like a cover, you just use the edge of this to pop that out and you can still get in the vehicle if the battery on the car is dead, right? But this is just an emergency and it's also the valet portion. So if you're going to a very nice restaurant and they have valet, or if you're going to a hotel, you normally would either give your whole set of keys if you're comfortable, or if not, you would give them just this fob so they can still operate the vehicle. But if you have a glove compartment that has a locking mechanism for the glove box or anything else, you can lock it with this key and keep others from having access to it, right? And most of these will have like a little battery kind of put inside of it. And as I try to pull this apart, these are actually kind of tough to do, but just kind of slide it out. So there you are. So there's the battery right there, and there's the slot where it goes in. And nowadays, most of these batteries you can purchase pretty much anywhere, like Advanced Auto, AutoZone, Walmart, any place where batteries are sold. You just basically have to match it up with the battery type that you see in your fob. Now, one of the things when we talk about checking for usage, uh, I've had instances where clients have bought vehicles from me and they told me that their fob went dead, or they'll have like a little indicator on the dash that doesn't that lights up that says the battery's low, or let's say if they're pushing on it and it doesn't lock and unlock the vehicle. One of the things I've learned over the years is that even though you may not be able to use the main operation of this, despite this having a dead battery, you can still start the vehicle. For most cars, what you would do is you would place the fob next to the ignition button, or you could use this key to press the button. It sends a signal to the starter that will allow the vehicle to start, regardless if there's power emanating from the key fob. So that's one important thing about that. So in case you ever are in a situation where your key fob battery is dead, that's one thing to try. Some vehicles will have a slot where you insert the key kind of in and around on the dash below the steering wheel column. Some of them will even have like a signal indicator underneath the steering column where you can place the key up against there and it will send a signal to the vehicle for it to start as well. So, various different options. Definitely check the manual on your vehicle to determine which works for yours. Now, one of the things that is really, really interesting about these fobs is that nowadays, if you were to leave your key in the car, and in some makes and models, if you leave your keys in the trunk and you close your trunk, your vehicle may or may not even allow that to happen. It may just pop the trunk right back open. If you ever experience that, where your trunk continues to pop open even though you tried to close it, that means you've left the key back in the back trunk area. Now, another thing, let's say you happen to leave your keys in the car. I've done this when I was younger and I hated myself for doing this. I had to call AAA a couple of times. One time I left my keys in the ignition, not even thinking about it. Well, nowadays with these fobs, even if you were to leave your key inside the vehicle, your vehicle driver door will still not lock. And another thing, some of the newer vehicles will let you know if the key fob is either in the vehicle still, or some of them will even let you know that the key fob is not in the car. Now, that one is very important. So, my first experience with selling vehicles that had the push button start with the smart key, I remember I had a customer that bought a 2013 Honda Accord EXL. Now, back then for 2013 Hondas, if you had an EX model, which was a sunroof but cloth or above, you would get the proximity key or the smart key. And I remember one of my clients told me that their vehicle was stranded and they could not start their car. And I remember going over with them, one of the things about the key fobs. And I reminded them, I was like, wait a minute, do you have your keys with you? And at first she thought she did, but then she was like, "Oh my God, I left my keys inside on my kitchen counter." So let me explain this to you. You get in the car, you start the car with your key with you. You go inside, you take your keys out. You come back in. Let's say if you don't have your keys, your vehicle is still going to run because the signal has already been sent and the vehicle is running. If you were to ever stop your vehicle or turn your car off and the keys are not with you, you are stranded. This is very, very important. Okay. Now, for the older models that did not have that indicator or the key fob indicator, if you have a proximity key, just be very careful. Okay. Especially if you're buying a pre owned vehicle with a smart key function. Some of the new cars now, and I'm thinking going back for a lot of models, like back to like 2018 and above, they had a system set up where they would have a built-in signal that would emanate or relay to the vehicle that the key cannot be found or the key is not in proximity. So that was a great indicator for clients. So if you saw that, oh shoot, I better not turn this car off yet until I know where my keys are. Okay. So, just the big thing about these, just make sure, because I don't think this is going to change. This is going to be pretty much the standard moving forward for most vehicles. So, if you do buy a vehicle with a proximity key and you haven't experienced this yet, please take to heart the things that I'm explaining to you because the last thing you want to have happen is that you're either stranded somewhere or you don't know about the operation of your vehicle. Cool? All right, awesome. All right, guys. So continue to send any kind of questions or comments to the email, thelifeofcar at gmail.com. Definitely, if you have any questions and topics you want me to talk about during the segments, during the podcast segments, definitely drop a line to me, drop a dime. Would love to do talk about you and definitely give you a shout out as well if you're interested. Okay, so now we're pretty much about ready to wrap up. A couple of announcements. I am working on lining up at least one take the wheel segment this month. I do have one individual that I have been in discussions with, and once we get an actual date set, I will announce it and get everything going and hopefully we'll get that straight. Next month, right around in my area in Virginia, they have an annual race in Danville that's called the Michelin GT, and it's called the Virginia International Raceway. It's a pretty well-to-do racetrack. We have races that come here a lot that are in circuits that travel all over the world, not just the US. So the Michelin GT is a pretty big race for our area, and I'm hoping to do a live viewing of that as well too. That's going to be, I think, towards the end of August. So if you guys are interested, definitely put that on the calendar. Typically, they do the VIR Michelin GT race around the end of August, if I'm not mistaken. So just keep that in mind, and I hope to have you guys join me when I do the live production of that as well. All right. All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead and sign off for today. Once again, just for those of you who are seeing this for the first time or you are consistent fans of the podcast, continue to share this with 5 other individuals and have them like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well to the website. We are continuing to grow the subscription base. It is growing and it's been developing. So I'm really been excited about that. So guys, thank you so much for continuing to show up and to hear me talk and to share my experiences. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for being a part of this. And speaking of being a part of this, one of the things I always like to talk about, this is our thing, this thing of ours. So anyone and everyone who's interested in learning about cars or advent experts in the auto industry, and you just want to be a part of it and give some feedback and encouragement, please, this is come one, come all. Everyone is invited. Everyone is a part. Okay. Now, we're going to go ahead and get sign off for today. So appreciate you guys joining me. I always thank God because I always allow him to take the wheel. And even though we may not always agree, it's important that we continue to show respect. You guys stay up. I'll see you on the road.